Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's the end of the year, so it's time to wrap up and look back at all the great books that I've read this year. I want to take this video as an opportunity to recommend my 10 favorite books that I've read this year. They're not necessarily new releases, they're just new to me from this year, so that excludes any rereads. If I did include rereads, A Monster Calls would win pretty much every year. But these are two new books to me. There's no really criteria of what makes a book great for me. It's just, what I felt at the time of reading it, and if I still continue to think about the book, even, weeks, months after finishing it. There is one exception. The very first book that I want to talk about, I actually finished reading it quite recently. Last week, it's the last book that I read for the year. Even though that's not a lot of time between reading and then posting this, I still feel like I will continue to think about this book for years to come. And that's really my criteria. If I think about a book multiple times throughout, after reading it, then I must really like it. Unless, I guess, I'm going to sound like a hypocrite, unless it was so bad I also think of it like that. But I like to chuck those books out of my mind. So these are 10 books I would like to recommend to you that I really enjoyed. So let's get right into it. I know some booktubers, they don't like putting things in order when they're doing their 10 favorite books or recommending books to you at the end of the year. But I don't mind doing that. I think it's actually kind of fun. Again, I love college sports. I love rankings and talking about ratings and all that. So these books are in order from 10 to 1. I did enjoy all of these books. Probably the top three more than the rest. I think 10 through 4 all kind of equal. And then my three favorite books of the year are a little bit ahead of all the rest. But to start us off, my most recent read, I finished it 4 days ago at the time of recording, and that is Human Acts. Gotta make sure I'm getting the camera right. It's been a while. Human Acts by Hong Kong. She is the Nobel Prize winner for literature for this past year. That's why I kind of chose this book. It is about the 1970s, 1980s student uprising in South Korea against the dictator at the time. I did not know anything about that part of South Korean history, so it was very interesting to read. I know this video is all about my 10 favorite books, but I am going to sound like a hypocrite for a little bit. I don't know if I can actually call this a favorite read of mine, because it is very dark, very upsetting, but at the same time deeply moving. I wanted to say that the writing was very beautiful, but I don't know if it can be beautiful if, most of the most of the parts in this book, detail rotten bodies, mass killings, the spirits and souls being torn from their bodies. It's not beautiful, it's not pretty, but the writing itself is very powerful. It's very, very gripping, I would say. But this book is not for the faint of heart, I would say. It reminded me a lot as I was reading it. I think I have it up there. Night by Elie Wiesel. I always think about his last line in the book and how much that last line moved me and made me think when he doesn't recognize himself in the mirror. And the entirety of Human Acts reminds me of that one moment. It's so well written. It's riddled with so many great moments and lines that I love that I want to dissect further. But it is painful to read at times because it is very upsetting. It has very powerful themes on pain, suffering, and, I would say, one's disillusionment with their own country because, the country itself, the soldiers are the ones attacking the students. And I think, that's a very, powerful and oftentimes ignored theme to discuss in literature. But I did really enjoy that. The prose is beautiful. It's very detailed. It may upset some because of how detailed it gets with some of the descriptions and the scenes in it, but I really enjoyed it. It's very unique as well. I think if you're looking for a unique style book, it switches point of view. It plays around with that structure as well, and it plays around with different characters, timelines, shifting. Just a great book. I would like to check out more by this author, so I think I will make that kind of a goal going into the new year. That is number 10, Human Acts by Hong Kong. At number 9, we have a graphic novel. I don't read a lot of graphic novels, and I really think I should because every time I do read a graphic novel, I end up really enjoying it. We got Shubik Lubik by Dina Muhammad, which is an Egyptian story, magical realism, about what it would be like if wishes did actually exist in the world, and what if they were a commodity that people could buy, sell, and trade in the different tiers of a wish, depending on how it was produced and how much it costs, would grant different levels of power as well. So it's also, a criticism on capitalism as well. Yay. I really, really adored this story. It's told from, I think, 4 or 5 characters, their stories. The book is broken up into those parts, and what wish they want and their journey to try to get this wish, attained, what they're striving for, because all of them end up buying a very expensive wish from a very unlikely person. And these aren't normally the type of people who would be, who would have access to these wishes. But I really, really enjoyed it. I think each character has a very moving story. I really connected with 2 of them in particular, but I don't want to give too much away with that. I think, everybody should go out and read it. It's going to be something to think about, especially with one of them. I know I just said 2, but with one of them, the college-age student in that story. I'm no longer in college. I'm a little bit older than that, but the feelings that he went through, how he felt towards his friends and family, and how he kind of felt that they treated him, I think I connected very much to that story. It has a lot of commentary about mental health and community and belonging, and I just really enjoyed it. Please give it a shot. At number 8, I got James by Percival Everett. It's a retelling of Huckleberry Finn, but from the perspective or point of view of James/Jim. It is a book that has everything. It's deeply moving. It's ultra serious, but it's funny at a lot of parts as well. But again, the subject matter, if you know anything about Huckleberry Finn and Mark Twain's works, or Percival Everett's works, you know that the themes are going to be very important, and about race, about community and identity in the United States, especially. I loved it. I chose to read it because I believe, and I feel guilty saying this, I believe I am teaching Huckleberry Finn this year. I know it's required. I can't remember what grade level is required for the school system that I work for. It's my first year, so I have an excuse. I don't know what I'm doing right now. And I want it to have, a book that I could maybe hand to a student who also really enjoys Mark Twain. I already know of one student who is excited to read Huckleberry Finn because I believe the student played Huckleberry Finn or was Huckleberry Finn in a play for a drama club like last year, and they've been talking to me about that. So I was reading this to kind of refresh myself on the story, but also because I love connecting to my students' interests. I think it says on the front cover, Pulitzer Prize finalist, well deserving. I think it won a bunch of awards, and I was rooting for it at every single awards ceremony that it was nominated for. But that is number 8. At number 7, got True Grit by Charles Portis. This is like a 1970s library edition. I left it at the bottom of my closet, and now it's a little lopsided. I need to take better care of my books. True Grit. I think if there's one thing I want to say about True Grit, I think I talked about it when I read it in another video. Maddie is going to be one of my favorite characters, I think, of all time. She has a very distinct voice, a very distinct personality. She really comes off the page as a very living, breathing character. She runs the show. She pushes the narrative. She really gets the other characters to act, and she doesn't just stand around and let things happen. All the other characters are also pretty well done. But I think I am drawn to Maddie and her voice again. Very distinct writing style. The prose is wonderful. I think if you are someone who really enjoys characters and you love characters more than plot, you'll really enjoy this book because the plot itself, if you watch the movie, it's the same thing and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no twists or turns at all. Even if you've never watched the film, either version, I think, is a pretty standard plot. Point A to point B, you know what's going to happen, but just well done. because, again, of the characters. And I will give all my props to Charles Portis. At number 6, this is where I'm really disappointed in myself because I don't know where the book is. I read it, I think, back in March. And again, because of the move and buying a house, the book is somewhere. Which kind of stresses me out because I was maybe going to lend it to my wife because she's been talking about reading it for a while, and I can't find it. So that's not good. But it is Lonely Castle in the Mirror. I don't remember the author's name. I feel really bad about that. It is a Japanese novel about a young girl, a young student who, when she looks into a mirror, she's transported into this world where she's stuck in a castle with a bunch of other young students, and the person who can find a set of keys to unlock a door gets to have one wish granted. I talked about this, when I read it in another video as well. I think it's going to stick with me for a while because, again, as a teacher, I do take bullying very seriously, and any story that talks about bullying of young kids kind of breaks my heart. Because I, too, was bullied a little bit in middle school, I think like most people. But it's definitely something that I connected to. Again, this idea of friendship, picking your friends and picking those who you want to love and feeling loved by other people who also choose you instead of, just being in class with them or being stuck with your family. I think choosing people who deserve your love is such a great, message in this book. And also the science fiction aspects of this book were great surprises and well done as well. Well done as well. Jeez, English teacher moment. Just a fantastic thing. I think the characters were all great, especially the wolf. I don't want to spend too much time about her, but the young girl who is also kind of part wolf, if I remember correctly. Really great character as well. I think a lot of people will enjoy it. A very easy read as well. I think that's something that I shouldn't ignore. It's a book that I think will only take you like a day or two. So if you're looking for a quick read, give Lonely Castle in the Mirror a shot. I'm immediately thinking that I should probably reorder my books for these rankings because as I went to go pick up this book for my bed, I grew excited to talk about it because I don't think I've talked about it in a video, but I have talked about it with my wife and with some of my friends. It is a middle grade book. It is The Labors of Hercules Bill by Gary Schmidt. I actually do not enjoy a lot of Gary Schmidt's books. I think it's because my boss at my last school really loved them and pushed them onto our students for summer reading, and I don't like being told what to read as well. I didn't really enjoy them. And I felt like with his other books, he's very heavy-handed with his morals and with his themes, and he kind of pushes what he wants kids to learn down their throats, but not so with this book. I think this one is more carefully crafted. It is about a middle school boy who is tasked with, a project where he has to write about, Hercules and his labors and, and how he would maybe tackle these labors, and he has to just write about them. And throughout the school year, he does different tasks around his family's farm involving his brother and friends. And, he learns from these unexpected tasks different lessons. And it's so beautiful, the things that, that happen in this book. It is, it's very powerful, I would say, without giving too much away. The best parts of it reminded me of A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. And I think that's very high praise, especially if you know me, that's high praise. It is just a wonderful story about family and about brotherhood that I think if you have a brother, younger or older, you will absolutely adore this book as well because you might see yourself in this story too. Very funny at times because you also get parts of his essays that he has to write for his teacher. And his teacher is, I think, former military, and he is the type of teacher that I aspire to be because he is rough and gruff and to the point, but he's also very loving, and he's very kind, even though the kids don't realize that. And he's he wants to push them and keep rigor in his classroom. And maybe the kids don't like him at first, but they grow to love him. I think the teacher in here is going to be one of my favorite characters for the year. But a wonderful, wonderful book. I'm going to hold it up again because I think even though it's middle grade, if you don't read middle grade, shame on you. Read more middle grade. Wonderful book. Please, please, please check it out. You don't have to read the rest of Gary Schmidt's novels, but please read this one. I know I just said that I might rethink my order of these books, change my mind immediately, because as soon as I picked up this book, I also grew excited, and that is The Serpent King by Jeff Zentner. This is the year of Jeff Zentner. I read another one of his books, and I purchased my third book. I think I talked about this just last month in my review for In the Wild Light by Jeff Zentner. And I did talk about The Serpent King in that review. The Serpent King is so beautifully written, and so, I guess, I can't really think of a lot of words. It's powerful. It made me cry because of things that happen in this book. And that doesn't happen often. I don't normally cry with books. It is young adults, about 3 teenagers experiencing their senior year, and the things that happen normally in your senior year and things that don't, normally happen in one's senior year, and what they have to do to overcome it. I think like Zentner's other book that I talked about last month, In the Wild Light. This book is really about people who think they don't really deserve love, and that they don't deserve good things to happen to them, which I think is a focus on in a lot of Zentner's books. It's going to be a heavy theme in this book, and I think it really touches me personally, just being honest, because at times I struggle with that. Even in my 30s, I still struggle with this idea of not always deserving good things happening to me. But I think a lot of teenagers will also connect to this book. We have 3 great characters that with great voices. I think Zentner did a great job of writing each and every point of view, because it is told from each of their point of view. They sound very different. You can ignore the chapter header and read the first couple lines and know immediately which character is speaking. And as a male author, he does a great job with his female character, not just his 2 male leads. But wonderful, beautiful book that I think, again, more people should read. He's friends with Emily Henry, because I know some Emily Henry fans will watch this. If you like Emily Henry, give Jeff Zentner a shot. They kind of, gas each other up. I really like it, both their writings. But that is Jeff Zentner's The Serpent King. As I said at the very beginning, my 10 through 4 are kind of evenly matched, and then my top 3 are kind of, ahead of the rest. They're a step above, at least for my enjoyment and how much I think about them. I am cheating with this one because it is 2 books in one, and I don't normally do that. But I did finish the first arc of a series, and that is going to be Morning Star by Pierce Brown, or AKA Red Rising, I guess, trilogy. It was originally a trilogy. Now there's a lot more in it. I finished the trilogy this year. I think the characters, without giving too much away, the characters are, again, some of the best. I think that's going to be a theme with 3, 2, and 1 for my rankings. I love the characters in each of these top 3 books more than anything else. And with this story, with Red Rising, I think Darrow, now I can't remember. I don't do audio. I hope it's Darrow. He is a wonderful character that goes through so many hardships and battles through them over and over, and just doesn't give up. And I love that. It is such a cool story. There's so much action, so many heartbreaking moments, but so many uplifting moments as well, that just made me flip the page over and over and over and over. I did hear some complaints about Morningstar, specifically because of the ending, because in this book it breaks a very important rule for narrative and for writing itself. But people are ignoring the rule of cool. I thought the ending was cool. I know I just talked about how not a lot of books made me cry. Red Rising did make me cry, I think. Just going on this journey with so many of the characters and seeing everything that they went through, and seeing how book 1 connects to 2 and 3 and the story that he had planned for it was great. I am also cheating a little bit because I finished Golden Sun, which is book 2. I think it's up there. I finished Golden Sun right before getting married, and then I finished Morning Star on my honeymoon, so there's kind of a personal connection. I will always think of those 2 books because of my wedding and the best week of my life. So there you go. That's number 3. Number 2 is a surprise to me because at the beginning of the year, I don't know if I would have selected this, but I ended up picking it as a read for my book club that I'm in with my Pokemon friends. I've heard so many good things about it. It is a very polarizing book because of how unique it is in terms of structure and writing style. But I love the style, and that is The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. It is, if you want to know a little bit about like what makes it unique in terms of style, it is second person with like hundreds of characters narrating. I would say 2 main ones who we get their point of view, but the story is interrupted a number of times by other point of view, from spirits and ghosts. I don't know. It's been a while how to describe them. But it is, I think, the best love story I've ever read. Spoiler alert, sorry, probably I shouldn't have said that so early on in the review. But it's said in the very first part of the book that, at the very heart of this novel, it is a love story. And I think with this book, I just can't stop thinking about it. Because what I really loved about it was the ending of every single part had such a wow factor, a wow moment. And Simon Jimenez would drop this just ultra nugget of wisdom at the end of every single part. And I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I thought, with the themes as well, it's a theme, it's a story of family, of legacy, of immigration. It is, in my opinion, I'm not an expert on it, but it is an immigrant story as well, and all about folklore and folk tales and passing down stories from family members to newer generations. And I just thought it was just so well done. The setting is unique. The magic is unique. The characters are unique. The characters are wonderful. I am so happy I read this book. I want to give, I think it's called The Vanishing Birds, his other big novel, a shot, because I absolutely adored this book, much like every other book on this list. But this is number 2. It was number 1 for a while. I kept flipping back and forth between 1 and 2. But at the end of the day, my number 1 edged out just a little bit because I still think about this book more often. So let's get right into number 1. Yeah, with number 1, I recorded the review earlier in the year. It's now going to be one of my most anticipated books for 2025, the sequel, that is. That is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. As I said, I think with 3, 2, and 1, the characters are my favorite parts. And that is, hands down, my number 1, I guess, love of this book are 2 main characters. It is a fantasy mystery, Sherlock Holmes inspired story, and I don't really read a lot of mysteries, so maybe if I did, maybe it wouldn't necessarily tickle my fancy like all the others. But I love the characters. I don't think there's really much else to say about that. I think they had such a great relationship, a great pairing. They were both very unique. The voices were well done. It made me just bust out laughing more times than not. Compared to every other novel, I read a lot of sad books. Maybe that's why I also really liked them. Liked The Tainted Cup. It wasn't as sad as all the rest. Just a hilarious novel with an amazing setting. I think I said this in my review. Not only the characters are great, but the other thing that I really loved from this book is just the tone, the mood that it's going for, and again the setting, because you can just feel. When I think about this book, I think of the color green, where there's a lot of life everywhere, but it's life that's trying to kill you. Like the plants, the blood dripping from these titans, these creatures. It's very toxic. It's a very dirty land, but it's very much alive and just festering, I guess is the best way of putting it. I loved it. I don't really read a lot of mysteries. Maybe it's not the most original in terms of plot. Where again, I wasn't necessarily surprised at the end with the reveal, but with the characters and with the setting, and with the magic as well, all of that, super well done. Just loved it, loved it, loved it. I am so excited for the second book. I think it comes out in April. That's going to be one of the few times in my life where it's going to be a drop everything and read that book. At least I hope I get to do that, because I have to direct a play at that time as well. That's unfortunate. Those are my 10 books I want to recommend to you that I really enjoyed from this year. I don't really have much else to say. Hope 2025 is a great year for everybody. I hope to continue to read. I don't think I'll read as much because, again, I want to write more. But, yeah, that's all I got. Like, subscribe, do whatever. Peace.